you want to hear something crazy? Shrek turns 25 years old this year. I can't believe it either. But Shrek is a franchise that has been so important to me throughout most of my life. Like I pretty much grew up with the first three movies, honestly. Like even the fourth one to an extent, honestly. But the first two are ones that have meant so much to my life. Like honestly, the first one I'm going to get later, but it's a film I have seen the most out of any movie ever. And I've still, yeah, I have much more appreciation for the second one, honestly. And I pulled the first two in such a special place to my heart. And it's definitely interesting how Shrek became just this big, gigantic, meme juggernaut of a franchise. Like, when you really went there, but Shrek back then was everywhere with the memes, with the culture from certificates it had. Honestly, I even been on the rides, and I remember going on a couple of rides when it comes to Shrek. Honestly, like, yeah, it is an extremely popular franchise, and yeah, for good reason. It is definitely a popular series for good damn reason. And so I figured it'd be fun. I do like a whole video when it comes to the Shrek franchise, honestly. And for this, basically, I'm going to going to do a look back at each of the movies. The first one that came out in 2001, the second one that came out in 2004, Shrek the third that came out in 2007, Shrek fourth that came out in 2010. Seriously. And just for the hell of it, I'm on top of the Puss in Boots movies as well. Just for the hell of it, honestly, and honestly, one I should definitely want to talk about, but I figured, why the hell not? So, I figured, you know, with Shrek 5 coming next year, honestly, I figured the perfect time I needed to talk about this series, and so we all going to get another movie later this year, so it's going to be interesting to talk about. So I hope you'll enjoy this video, guys. Feel free to hit like, subscribe button, guys. Feel free to hit that like and subscribe button if you guys want to watch this, and let me know your thoughts on these movies down below in the comment section. With all being said, let's talk about the Shrek franchise 25 years later. So the original Shrek came out on May 16th, 2001. And this was one that said, this also started kind of another drama, basically, it started basically of drama, but basically period of adaptations where, especially the Disney animated movies around this time, honestly, were all that was like very popular around this time, honestly, and then this kind of started the parody of those genres, honestly. And probably this was actually building for a while, honestly. But Chris Farley was actually going to be cast as the one that was voiced originally, actually, but he eventually died, and it took them before the work is finished, so they hired Myers to replace them. But yeah, this movie stars Mike Myers as Shrek, Eddie Murphy as Donkey, Cameron Diaz as Princess Fiona, John Lithgow as Lord Farquaad. And also a lot in as well, honestly. I think Jim Cunningham's here as well, so. But yeah, if you doesn't know what the original Shrek is about, it's about an ogre who's always so bitter and everything, and then he's lives a lot, honestly, because and this kind of message is told from most, but this, especially next movie, is that he's an ogre, so he must be scary and terrifying, and he kind of does play around that, honestly, kind of does play that he is like a very scary person, but in reality, he isn't. He's just a simple man that wants to be alone, but he really kind of wants something, because he just hates being judged for people to know him and all that stuff, which does make Shrek a very compelling character. And then one random day, he basically ends up getting entered by Donkey, by Eddie Murphy, who ends up basically getting sold up, obviously, because, well, he's annoying, and he kind of played up that shit in this movie. And then basically a lot of fairy tale creatures end up coming in and everything. And then a lot of fairy tales are overrun and they're strong because they are banished by Lord Farquaad. And it leads to a journey to go to him and then rescue Princess Fiona in exchange for the truth of his swamp, which leads to being rescued and a buddy romance between Shrek and Fiona. Like I mentioned, this movie basically just parodies a lot of fairy tale genres and all that stuff. And like I said, this was definitely the movie that put DreamWorks on the map. So while they had a couple of movies before this, obviously, like, you know, Chicken Run and Prince of Egypt. Yeah, and Chicken Run, I think Prince of Egypt was kind of more of a classic, and Chicken Run was more of an R-Man movie than anything, but Shrek was really the movie that put DreamWorks on the map. And it's still probably the most popular franchise, and for good reason. And honestly, and like I mentioned before, the original Shrek is the movie I probably would say I've rewatched more than any movie in existence. That's actually unintentional, actually, because, you know, that was the movie back in elementary school and middle school, even high school. This was a movie they would always play on, so they always just randomly put on the original Shrek. So it was more of an intentional thing, honestly, but despite that, 25 years later, the original Shrek still is a great movie. I think the animation actually holds up extremely well today. This is when computer animation was still ongoing and improving, and it holds up pretty well actually, as well. Not to mention the performances are really well done as well. Again, this is where Mike Mike was still, gorgeous. And he actually does a really good job portraying Shrek, portraying the emotion of the character and all the layers of this character. And Eddie Murphy makes Donkey just a very likable presence. I love someone that just wants to be friends and all that stuff. But obviously, people have to be very annoying, which Emma Suit, obviously, just the theme of the movie, obviously. And then we also get Cameron Diaz, who voices Fiona. This is when also she was still good as well. And then she ended up having like great man chemistry, obviously. It turns out she's kind of as gross as Shrek, honestly. It leads to a lot of layers about the movie. Especially when she like sings and then the boat just explodes. Well, and then they end up like inflating animals and make them like balloons, like. And turns out they're kind of like very similar, honestly. And then turns out she's very cursed. And also an ogre as well. Stuff. And also, and it's also Lord Farquaad, who I always forget that John Lithgow actually voices him, actually. I sometimes forget who voices Lord Farquaad, actually, but sometimes I always John Lithgow, and he sells this character very well. At least in the first two movies, they always sell the villains pretty well here, and Lord Farquaad is a pretty well done villain here. They make him very threatening and also very hilarious. And again, this movie is just still consistently hilarious. Like, there's still a lot of jokes that are still very hilarious and very just laugh out loud hilarious and charming, maybe from backflipping all the characters, and then making fun of a lot of genres of fairy tales. And we can see a lot of different fairy tale stuff here, like, Pinocchio, the Little Three Pigs, the Wolf, and the Gingerbread Man. Of course, that kind of like, do you know the Muffin Man? Yeah, do you know the Muffin Man? Like, yeah. We also get Robin Hood here as well, honestly, in the very hilarious sequence as well. The movie is also very well paced, honestly. Of course, it does have that cliche that I break up, honestly, that's just based on a misunderstanding. But that's unfortunately a common thing in the movies, honestly. But because that doesn't really bug me, honestly. And it's still done pretty well and effectively as well. It's like, yeah, you just one simple thing could have just changed all that, honestly. But in this case, it never really bugged me, honestly. And still, there's some good emotion here. Not to mention the music in this movie. Oh my god, the music. And this is what always makes these Shrek movies so great, is also the music. Not just like the score, honestly, but obviously, the songs they actually play here, honestly. Like, we got, like, All-Star by Smash Mouth. Hey now, you're an all-star, get your game on, go play. I still hear karaoke all of the time. But it's a damn great song as well. Like, Smash Mouth is great. Then it's got Unbeliever, which is one Smash Mouth, which actually is a cover from the Monkees, actually, which also I did not, I always forget Unbeliever actually was a cover. This was actually a cover, actually. I always seem to get that stuff song plays, honestly. And we also got, like, I'm on my way by the Proclaimers, obviously. You even get Hallelujah here as well. Hallelujah. I think you even get covered Bad Reputation as well. And you get some really good music here in general. And the soundtracks are usually the best part of Disney, and especially in the next movie, honestly. The soundtrack just kick ass. Even the score is pretty good as well, but the music really does deliver. Honestly, too bad this is something that DreamWorks seems to always do with their movies, honestly, and it just definitely some a few more better than others, obviously, but Shrek and such the sequel, which again too, definitely use that music very well to really capture the emotion and the fun of the movie. Again, like I said, the movie is consistently hilarious. Like one of my favorite scenes is always the scene where they go to rescue Fiona, and then it's like, you say, I object, and like, you want to love her, hold her, please her, yeah, then you got that giant little tenderness. She's loving that meant the crap. Like, I swear to God, they actually said crap in an animated movie. I don't know what it is. It's just, I think that's one of the times that just goes over your head, honestly. And but yeah, like I said, it's paced very well. The characters are very fun and likable, and the humor is very well done, honestly. It does have that gross out humor, but it does it very effective as well. It does a good job making you care about the characters, has consistently hilarious moments and consistently hilarious moments, very fun dialogue, and again, the animation still holds up pretty well, honestly. Like, there's a good reason why the original Shrek kind of blew up much as it did, because it was a fantastic movie. That just puts a big grin on your face. And even if I honestly haven't watched the movie very often, I still hold the original Shrek in a very high regard. It's definitely up there in the top 3 favorite DreamWorks movies. For sure. For sure. And yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say about Shrek, honestly. It's a fantastic movie, honestly. It's still one of DreamWorks' best movies. And I think for the longest time, it actually was my favorite DreamWorks movie. And then we have Shrek 2. It came out on May 19th, 2004, with basically most of the cast basically returning, but also again, it's like Julian Andrews as Queen Lillian, John Cleese as Green Herald, Antonio Banderas as Puss in Boots, Rupert Everett as Prince Charming, and Jennifer Sanders as the Fairy Godmother. We also get people like Baby Wolf and the stepsister as well. And yeah, like I said, the original Shrek was my favorite dream for the longest time, but Shrek 2 has now pushed it out, honestly. I think I've always debated what I think is best Shrek 2. Like, I think I've always knew that Shrek 2 was a better movie, but after we were watching it more often recently, and after thinking about it more often recently, I think Shrek 2 is a perfect movie. Like, honestly, I always thought Shrek 2 is truly the pure definition on how you do a sequel right. Shrek 2 is always the perfect way on how you do a sequel. Like, Shrek 2 is how you do a sequel. It's like the perfect way of how you do a sequel. It's up there, Shrek Fag is like, yeah, this is how you do a sequel. Honestly, so it pretty much just builds on the world building, builds on the characters, and builds on the art from the previous movies. And we'll expand on that what made the original so great. Again, Shrek was huge when it came out, honestly. Like, I was there when it came out. Shrek 2 made it even more popular. And again, really takes place following the events with Bowser's Shrek and Fiona having like their big cutting in the face. They even kind of parodied the opening sequence, the opening sequence in the first movie, where basically it's like, once upon a time there was a lovely princess who gets trapped in the tower, then she's like, that's not going to happen. And they kind of parodied that when you see actual Prince Charming actually going to rescue Fiona while narrating the whole thing. And then basically finds out that they're on the honeymoon and everything, and we see this whole scene going on the honeymoon with accidental love playing, which I will talk about something into music. And it's just a hilarious sequence, and I'm gonna say this, Shrek and Fiona are probably my favorite movie couple of all time. And I think last year I did do like a top 10 best movie couples, and I think Shrek and Fiona were my number 1 actually. And it's because the message of this movie just shows that, and because the message and display in the story of this movie, honestly, and the lengths that Shrek was going to make Fiona happy, but we'll get into that when we get there. But yeah, basically, after that, Donkey comes in, everything wants to be alone and everything, and then these guys, when they're coming in, finds out that, so basically Shrek and Donkey end up meeting Fiona's parents, who they don't realize that at the end of the first marriage, Fiona's still an ogre, and they're like, oh. Ooh. Which doesn't take very well, honestly, and we get the Queen and King on to trying to get adjusted to that, and all that stuff, and the lengths of Shrek girls, and like I said, the lengths of Shrek girls too, just to make Fiona happy. Like drinking this happy hour after potion that would basically, make everything great again, and just be like, again, that just makes it so great. And of course, we get introduced to Puss in Boots by Antonio Banderas. And like I said before, I do plan to talk about the spin-offs as well, so, well, definitely get those movies to get there, but Puss in Boots definitely steals the show, honestly. He's the definition of a sporting cat that really steals the show. With just by the lines he says, honestly, the hilarious cap jokes that he does, honestly, that actually works very well here. And of course, Antonio Banderas' magnetic charisma as well makes Puss in Boots such an iconic presence in it, just from this movie alone. And again, it puts a big grin on my face throughout. But again, the reason why Shrek 2 I think is the superior movie on, so as much as I love the originals, again, it expands the world we see far, far away. Again, that sequel to the go actually ride the carriage far, far away, and Tom's like, are we there? No. Are we there yet? No. Are we there? Are we there? Yes. Really? No. For 5 minutes, and we get that calling. 5 minutes. Can you not be yourself? For 5 minutes. Yeah, for 5 minutes, could not be. And that line sounds not bad. No. Not mentioned the other characters are great as well. Obviously, King Harold, King Lion are just very interesting characters. Again, once you have to get to know them, obviously, once you know why Harold basically has done everything he's done, that actually makes him more of a better character. You also get the iconic Darius scene, which if I remember, I think I actually put it in my top 10 best moments of this franchise when I did that list a few years back. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think that one was number 1 actually. But it's just an hilarious sequence of events Honestly, especially when they just like break the food and everything and top out all strong, and then we get they kind of trying to like grab the pig and then flies and then Shrek, Fiona, Donkey, Henry, Donkey. That movie was still cracking up to this day. And you got Prince Charming, who at least in this movie is actually a threat here. Actually a very fun threat, honestly. Very good and already film that really still the show has so many iconic lines like that Fat Susie, honestly, which ends up boring Fat Susie like, thank you for ruining my diet. That just cracks me up to this day. And Karami for King Hill as well, honestly. And once you find out why Hill actually is doing all the stuff he's doing, it makes a lot of sense why he would do it. And again, the lengths that Shrek is willing to go to make Fiona happy, especially with that diary, like said, Mrs. Fiona Charming, Mrs. Fiona Charming, Mrs. Fiona Charming. Like, it's a very haunting scene, actually. And combined that, you really get some good action set pieces as well, honestly, especially at the castle, honestly. And you also got to figure out hinting that Ogre's Dole having out after, which is also an interesting message and what goes on here, which adds more to the messaging as well, obviously. And then we get some very emotional moments along the way, honestly. They can, at first, thinking the best of Fiona go, but it turns out they realized what they were doing, obviously. And then everyone to kind of get into like giant gingerbread. Then we get to the final battle, in which basically Shrek is actually human, Donkey's actually like a horse, Fiona's back to her normal self, and Prince Charming is cosplaying as Shrek. Not actually cosplaying, but he's kind of betraying Shrek. And then we get to final battle, which is one of the most epic final battles in all of film. Not just anime movies, but film, period. From the spectacles. Wait, did I actually have this number one, actually? I don't remember, honestly, but yeah, this is an epic final battle, obviously. Honestly, we get so many fun moments, so many crazy back and forths and everything. And also some great music as well. So, I mentioned the soundtrack and like the first one, it's fantastic. We have Accident in Love that played in that montage I mentioned earlier, which is an incredible song, by the way. And one of my favorite character songs, actually. Like, I always love singing Accident in Love, honestly. It's just a freaking banger of song. And then we also got Funky Town. He's the first time I actually ever heard Funky Town, actually. Don't you want you to take me to Funky Town? A song I need to do karaoke, actually. I wrote that song, actually. And of course, it also ends with Living La Vida Loca. I feel like every time I sing Living La Vida Loca, honestly, I always think of Shrek 2, honestly. And of course, we got I Need a Hero. I'm holding out for a hero till the end of the night. I feel like that's probably a fantastic song on its own. I feel like that song is more associated with Shrek 2 now than it is with the actual original. And that's because obviously Jeremy Stevens just belting that song so well and just also sing that song in the actual finale, which again is a pretty incredible sequence all on its own. I need a hero, I'm holding out of a hero till the morning light. Ooh, 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 ooh. Ooh. And the way of course that ends as well, obviously, where basically they're supposed to trick Fiona into drinking a tea that will make someone who kisses him falls in love. But then Shrek stops him, they end up kissing, but turns out he'll actually feel he swapped the tea, actually. Then he attempts to strike Shrek, he'll jump in front of him and gets struck, honestly, and then first bell, then Bellingham dies. And turns out Harold Harold turns into a frog, and it's like, oh, that explains it. Aww. And then they end up finding each other, and it turns out that they do love each other, honestly. And we get some moments, honestly, like ends up playing in the background, and there's also the dragon ends up being in the last movie, obviously, got to mention that, but that turns out he was a good old dragon. Donkey ends up forming a relationship with the dragon, to the point where you have like several donkey dragon hybrid go dronkies. Again, which again is pretty hilarious. And then they end up having so many babies together, it still makes me laugh to this very day. But yeah, Shrek 2 is, honestly, I would put this movie, I think I might put it at number 6 on my best ones all time, but honestly, I think I would put it top 5, honestly. It's honestly just a masterpiece of a movie. I really don't have any issue with it. Like I mentioned, the first one is perfectly paced, the humor is on point, the music is on point, the emotions, the character development, like, this is DreamWorks at his absolute best. Like, again, this goes a lot of that way, so DreamWorks kept me more consistent, because honestly, they keep When DreamWorks actually can really fall into it, they can make such incredible movies like Shrek 2. Along with another movie we'll get into later, but Shrek 2 is truly a masterpiece of a movie that has so many great moments, incredible set pieces, and just the perfect animated package in film that I always love coming back to. Look at the first one, no matter how many times I see it, I never get tired of it. It always puts the biggest grin on my face. It's generally woman comfort movies. It's generally a movie I can just put on, honestly, and just have a great time no matter what. It is honestly the pure definition of a comfort movie. I'll say the same with the first one as well, but I say I prefer Shrek 2, honestly, though. But again, it's a movie that never misses, it's perfectly paced, and it's just an incredibly enjoyable movie from beginning to end. Like I mentioned, it'll probably be I'll probably put it probably in the Mount Rushmore of my favorite movies, honestly. It's that good, honestly. And again, my opinion is DreamWorks' magnum opus and the best movie to date. And it's also far, far away, I honestly, which I remember actually watching that, because I actually owned the DVD this movie, honestly. Hey, do you miss when DVD Blu-rays used to actually, be exciting, actually? I miss those days. Yeah, but I might not be fun, honestly, but yeah. Shrek 2 is, like I mentioned, an incredible movie, but once it does get a bit downhill, unfortunately, but not too much downhill, but yeah, we'll get it, yeah. And now we get to Shrek the Third, which I'm not shouting, honestly, but I don't actually hate this movie, actually. No, it's not a great movie, honestly. Like, it definitely is a steep decline with the first two movies, honestly. Like, when you compare this, obviously, with the other two Shrek movies, honestly, it definitely, like, when you compare this between the other Shrek movies, it definitely is a steep decline. Honestly, it came out on May 18th, 2007, and that was like most of the cast returning out from that, where we got Mike Myers, Aaron Diaz, Eddie Murphy, Antonio Banderas, Rupert Everett, primarily new ones, like, Andrew Girls got like Maya Rudolph's Rapunzel, Amy Poehler Snow White, Amy Sims as Cinderella, Jerry Otto as Sleeping Beauty, and we also got Justin Timberlake as Arthur, honestly. And again, the story itself is all realistic, quite honestly, where basically we see on the hand, like, after the events, honestly, where basically Prince Charming is basically, like, still reeling from all the events happened in the last movie, obviously, and where he basically ends up playing the plane and everything that basically ends up going pretty well on, so it's him, like, saving the princess and all that stuff. And then he basically ends up going to the tavern, honestly, and prays all the very villains to fight for their happily ever after, and have them take over far away. And we see a lot of different villains coming in from the fairy tale genres, Captain Hook and Rumpelstiltskin, all that stuff. Like basically a lot of different villains. Also, actually, Captain Hook is actually played by Ian McShane, which is very interesting. And basically, we see Shrek, adjusting to life in the world, honestly, obviously, quits himself out, honestly, so he has to try to, because he's inherited while on the front following the death of, the death of King Harold is one of the most unintentionally hilarious deaths of all time. Not mention just dragged out, honestly, and not mention it just feels kind of dragged out, honestly. Just it's not really fun to watch, honestly. Where it feels like there were 2 or 3 times about to die, but it turns out he doesn't. Today, he finally dies. And then Shrek and Jones has no answer because he just doesn't think he has what it takes or doesn't want to do in general. And so he attempts to convince Fiona's cousin Artie, Fiona's cousin Archie, or King Arthur, to basically reign instead, and he was the next in the line, next heir for the throne. And it shows that basically be on an adventure, and it shows them basically be on an adventure to try to get Archie, trying to convince them to do so, trying to convince them to take on the reign. Well, in the meantime, obviously, Prince Charming's taking over everybody, the princess is being captured, obviously, they end up, like, being badasses to try to rescue everybody, Rapunzel wants to turn on them, and then also turns out Fiona's pregnant, obviously, and he ends up realizing Shrek before he leaves, and he'll leave them be like, I don't know how to feel like that. Not sure what's, like, what? And then we get this, like, random subplot where honestly, we meet Merlin on the way, and then Donkey and Person are pushing bodies. Which Batman, that really goes nowhere, honestly. That's just kind of deal, honestly. And Yeah, the movie, like I said, I still do kind of enjoy the movie, but it does feel kind of a step down, honestly. Again, it's case where honestly, it could be just nostalgia, honestly. Like, it could be just nostalgia to why I still enjoy, honestly. But even I can deny that it does feel a stepping quality on me on the story front, the humor front. Prince Jeremy especially feels like he's a big step down. Like, feels like kind of more of a parody of himself in this movie, honestly, and he feels very more whiny than anything, and not an actual legitimate threat. You do obviously understand his motivations. That's probably a best actor. But Solomon is not as interesting. It proves that he's not really as interesting on his own, honestly, because obviously he was more with his very grandmother, who was his own mother, by the way. And the movie itself is not interesting, honestly. It doesn't really have the same like tonal greatness of the first one. Like I mentioned, that death scene onto King Hill ends up dying. Like, it just goes on way too long, honestly. Especially the scene where somebody better be dying. I'm dying. I think it's just very weird seeing honestly, we're also seeing like Shrek just injure people and just jokes that just feel just tasteless or just not funny, and jokes they like sure make you laugh out loud, but they don't. Not mentioning just go straight on with all the pop culture stuff, honestly. Well, that was, in the first two movies, they do it very sparingly or very smartly. Here it's just, hey, remember this reference, remember this character and all that stuff? Like, yeah, because that the story just doesn't be interesting. And especially when it comes to Shrek's struggle, when it comes to him wanting to be a father and everything. Which way, I don't remember the one not be affected that much, honestly. Especially that way that scene, especially that weird baby street nightmare he has, honestly. We ends up seeing a lot of baby ogres come through, honestly. And then it's just I'm even kid on some of that thing just being so weird and so off-putting. Da da da. Yeah, it just doesn't have that, like, it doesn't kid has moments, honestly. Like, again, Merlin, when time he was on screen, was definitely a standout, honestly. There are still some solid action set pieces, especially towards the third act, especially when the princesses actually do, honestly. And even the soundtrack's not that bad. Like, it definitely doesn't have that, like, the soundtrack definitely doesn't have that same oomph and the same pop that the first two movies had, honestly. Like, sometimes it's hard to remember what actually was in the soundtrack, honestly, but the only songs I remember being in the soundtrack was basically Live and Let Die by Paul McCartney, honestly. And that's the only song I really remember being here. And that was on the funeral scene, which wasn't bad, honestly. And of course, Immigrant Song that ends up appearing by Led Zeppelin. Those are one of the ones I really fully remember, actually. Yours is just take it or leave it, honestly. Yours, just take it or leave it. Don't really at least make much of it. Or they don't really make much of an actual impact on the actual movie itself, honestly. So that's from the two songs, unfortunately. And that's pretty much all you really say on it. So like, and it's very nice on it. Also, they end up twisting the villains to like, hey, why do you like this and all that stuff? Don't you want to be someone else and everything? And Artie is also a very solid character as well here as well. And yeah, Justin does a solid job, honestly. And there's not much to say about him as a whole, honestly. He's someone that just honestly was just a best running person and everything like that, and then just ends up, hey, I can be a king, honestly, and he seemed to struggle that a little bit, obviously, and then we also get this nice honestly, basically ends up getting captured, then Shrek admits that he kind of used him to save his life, and then ends up saving honestly, and then he ends up choosing to be king and everything like that, and then Shrek ends up finding kids, and that's that. Like a whole ton of baby ogres. Yeah. Yeah, it's just not, we did just all action, and Prince Charming does get comeuppance, and honestly, there's not much to be on, honestly. Like, it's a decent little movie, honestly. I think I probably enjoy more than most people, honestly, though. I totally understand why people would say this is like a bottom tier DreamWorks movie, honestly. They could sell it around the middle of a DreamWorks ranking, honestly, but again, I'm kind of the best spot, I do acknowledge, like, the issues the movie has, honestly, so, again, don't really have much to say, but try to 50 on that. And now we get to the last mainline Shrek movie honestly until we get Shrek 5 coming out May next year. Shrek Forever After, or the final chapter. Again, whenever they say final chapter, never believe that. And for the longest time, I did not like this movie. I did not enjoy this movie whatsoever. I think a lot of that's really because of the main storyline they decided to go for here, honestly. I feel like, again, negates a lot of the previous movies, honestly, which is always great, but it's really one movie that I feel like the more I've watched it over time, the more I thought about it, the more yeah, despite that storyline that really bugged me. It's actually a solid movie, actually. I think it's definitely much better than Shrek the Third, honestly. I think it's definitely a much better movie, honestly. It's really not like the first 30 minutes that really bugged me, honestly. And that's something, even when I first watched it after, I've always been like, so, really? And it's basically done on the story, honestly. And like, before you follow kind of like a prequel scene, honestly, where basically Rumpelstiltskin, actually, Rumpelstiltskin, where basically we see King Hulk lose all hope for the daughter, obviously, being feared for so many years. And then they're going to his strength for help, obviously, and he has a contract that will soon remove the curse if they give him the kingdom far, far away. But when he tries to sign it, it's like, hey, Fiona has been rescued! Because that Rumpelstiltskin has held a grudge against Shrek for ruining his plan. So what is that element of the story, obviously, that really just bugged me? That apparently Shrek doesn't like being a family man, doesn't like his life, honestly, doesn't like being loved, obviously, which is like, because apparently he misses the days that he, like, feared and everything had privacy, which, you know, kind of went against the messages of the first three movies, especially the first two movies, which also kind of went towards Shrek. Well, obviously, people are just, this is kind of what Shrek wanted, obviously, but, and they end up showing Jordan's first birthday, and honestly, this is a lot of mishaps, especially this kid saying, do the roar, 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 do the roar. Do it. They end up doing the roar, obviously. Then basically is angry, and then he basically storms out rage, and then we get the fortunate scene that basically ends up yelling at Fiona about everything. It's like I wish everything was back to the way it was. And then we're like, before you maybe a fast, I was like, exactly. Which kind of like a bit of a slap in the face to the other movies. Because, you know, that's kind of wasn't what Shrek arc in the previous movies, obviously. But I will say that after that scene, after the initial setup, honestly, the film does get better. The film does become more watchable. Why become more watchable? Because when you know, it's just I think I definitely going to appreciate certain actors movie more often, most because of the emotion and, you know, strength fall of, you know, over again, honestly, but basically against a me Rumpelstiltskin. And then he basically meets Rumple and all is to have him see a day where he can't be a real Ogre and exchange for a day of his childhood be erased. And obviously, you know, like, yeah, this is gonna go wrong. So wrong. Because the day he erased was his birthday. The day he was born. So Shrek never existed. And then he's basically, and then we get to alternate reality, and then we get to an alternate reality where basically Rumple did, Helen did sign a contract, which and the caused him to disappear, and then he became the ruler. And by the end, he ended up ceasing to exist. And then he ends up behind a donkey who is really terrified and actually scared of him. But as he highlights that he was, he ends up fighting him, and he finds out the contract can be nullified with true love's kiss. And then he ends up reuniting Fiona, who is their cousins, and even army of ogres in the resistance against him, and Pussy Boots, who is overweight. I didn't like what they did Percy, honestly, like, really just making him a fat cat, just, really? But I like the scenes where basically Shrek tries to rebound with Fiona and everything, and tries to actually get him to fall in love and all that stuff. And everything, and then everything. And those scenes are actually pretty well done, honestly. You also get some pretty nice action as well. The other was also pretty fun here as well. Like, not being memorable or anything, but they do serve their purpose, obviously. The action really sells it. The music's definitely much better than what the last movie. While I say there's nothing other memorable in terms of music, obviously, it's still pretty well done, obviously. And we get a very nice ending to it as well, honestly. Where, yeah, Shrek does appreciate everything like that. You know, it kind of weird, obviously, what happens to everything like that, but it's still a pretty nice moment, obviously. And wasn't at a time on good ending to this franchise, obviously. You know, we took it, had some tough edges getting there, obviously. Yeah, I still don't like that whole like, 20-30 minutes, obviously, we kind of like negated a lot of what happened in the previous movie. But again, so after, I definitely grown to appreciate more as time went on, obviously. To why I went per like honestly, there's one genre that I don't have like too much to say about, honestly, but it's one I've grown to appreciate more as time went on, obviously. Again, I definitely think it's better Trick the Photo, obviously. It's definitely still on the weaker end Trek movies, honestly, but again, and it's definitely not like a top tier DreamWorks movie, honestly. But stuff in the first 20 minutes, it's definitely a film I've grown to appreciate more as time went on. So I think I remember I really didn't like this movie at all, honestly. But you know, like I said, I've grown to appreciate it as time went on. So who knows, I might still appreciate it more the more I watch it. But yeah, it's definitely one I don't have like, too much else to say about, honestly. But sure, I think it's all a movie. Now we end up talking about the Puss, the Puss, the Puss, the Puss, the Puss, the Puss and Boots movies. Yes, I'm actually both of them actually in this section actually. Most because the first one, I actually don't have a lot to say about the first movie honestly. Like it was definitely a spin-off that I obviously wasn't surprised with being made honestly. It was like a year after the events of the original, after the last movie obviously. And again, it was definitely a fun movie obviously, but it's definitely one of DreamWorks' less memorable movies honestly that I still think is good. Again, it's definitely a fun adventure, a fun person to person movie, some fun back and forth and everything, but I just don't really have much to say beyond that, honestly. Sorry. But of course, I more want to talk about Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which came out in 2022, the end of December, a film that was pretty much in development hell for the longest time. And a film I don't think anyone expected to be good, honestly. I don't think anybody expected The Last Wish to be honestly really good at all, honestly. Considering how long it took to actually get out, honestly. But then it came out, and people were like, wow, it's fantastic. And it was. I think it actually originally made my top 20. But it's really one of the films that really just, the more I thought about it, the more I really thought about the movie in general, the more I just really fell in love with it. And it's to the point, it's my favorite movie of the 2020 so far. Yeah, you heard that right. A Puss in Boots sequel is my favorite movie of the 2020 so far. Not much sure how much I'm really going to get into it, honestly, because I'm pretty sure we've seen so many videos discussing the masterpiece, which honestly I don't think I need to reiterate how amazing this movie is. But yeah, this movie is amazing, obviously. Like, it's basically the story, and basically says after the adventure, basically Puss in Boots try to find the last wish, true story, because he's on his actual last life, honestly. And he basically ends up teaming up with the key Pods to try and find the last wish, while racing against other fairy tale characters to see all of fairy tale. Like, this movie has a lot of different villains, like Goldilocks, Florence Pugh. We also got Jack Horner, played by John Mulaney, the bands themselves, and of course, Wagamona playing Wolf/Death. Which, by the way, Death, which I say, the villains here are some of the best anime villains in recent memory. Especially Death. Like, Death is definitely one of the best animated villains, probably one of the best villains to come out in recent memory. Because they're just, unlike most movies, they're trying to focus more on them being sympathetic, which I often don't mind that. Yeah, these people are just assholes and terrible people. That's not much of Death, honestly, because obviously he's sometimes to be betraying as Death, obviously. All that stuff, and he's definitely the direction of how you really set up a character right, how you really set up a character, a villain right on with the intensity, with the scared, the music, the score they play when he's on screen. Like, from that first segment alone that he appears, you're like, oh my god. Also, the animation in this movie is just breathtaking. They obviously took a lot of inspiration from the Spider-Man movies, but they do it so beautifully and so great, honestly. Like, the most unique that anime movies looked, and also has mood as well. Like, truly phenomenal from beginning to end. Comes to the animation. The movie in general is just amazing to put me into. Again, I don't think I need to display honestly, but this movie is my favorite movie of 2020 so far. Happy Puss in Boots is fantastic. We also got Pareto, who is also an incredible supporting side character, honestly, that just delivers so many funny lines throughout the movie. The relationships, the back and forth between all the characters, the incredible, insane action set pieces, especially that final battle. Oh my god. Now, and also, I actually remember one moment actually top my, I think might have topped my best Shrek moments, honestly. And that is the anxiety attack scene. You know what was even surprising that a Puss in Boots movie was fantastic, at least a sequel to it? Then we got a anxiety attack scene that's probably the most realistic and the most genuine display of an anxiety attack I have ever seen. Again, if you know me personally, I love when films just, have stuff you really can relate to and really connect with, and has just very real moments that just feel so genuinely real that you really connect with it. We haven't seen on to basically because like so terrified and being scared. He basically literally has an attack, and then Predator basically just lays on his stomach to try and calm him down and everything. And again, the fact that how anxiety attacks team portrayed so perfectly here is incredible, and still probably the best entire movie in general, there's so many incredible moments. Again, the villains themselves, like the Goldilocks and the Three Bears are also great. Jack Horner is just a nasty character that they actually. I remember the scene where they actually trying to convince him that he actually is Dick, but turns out he really is just a terrible person. I love how they kind of make fun of that, honestly. Honestly, but again, I feel like everyone else has explained this movie so much, honestly. Sorry if I'm not explaining too much here, honestly, but again, also, it's crazy also that out of my top 2 DreamWorks movies are the first 2 Shrek movies and The Last Wish. Again, it is truly an incredible movie that, like I said, it is my favorite movie of 2021. I think I'm putting in my top 20 of my favorite movies of all time. Hell, I think I'm double a little bit actually, because it's just that rewatchable and that great. Again, incredible animation, incredible characters, smooth pacing throughout, incredible villains, great music throughout. Like, this is just the perfect, like I mentioned in the first Shrek movies, this is just the perfect anime package. And the fact that it came from a Person Boots sequel, I feel now like anybody didn't even remember what was even coming out, honestly. Yeah, I know it's going to take a special movie to really knock this movie off my favorite, honestly, because it really is that good. But yeah, well guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video as discussing the Shrek franchise. Again, if I were to rank all these movies, I would probably go Shrek the Third, Shrek Forever After, Puss in Boots, Puss in Boots' Last Wish, Shrek, and Shrek 2. And it should look like a franchise all these years later, honestly, because, again, this franchise was huge. I think it still is kind of huge, honestly, but back in 2000s, it was everywhere. Rides, everything, toys, all that jazz. Like, I was there when Shrek was the biggest thing imaginable. It's crazy that the first one now, 25 years later, honestly, but I still adore this franchise. It's definitely one of my still DreamWorks' best franchise, in my opinion. Obviously, there's been good ones like Commander and How to Train Your Dragon. They're probably more consistent. But the first 2 movies and The Last Wish are just incredible masterpieces that always hold a special place in my heart. Alright, there. And we'll see what happens to Shrek 5 next year, honestly. We'll see if it ends up, delivering, honestly. I know they had that trailer on, so I suppose it was supposed to come out December later this year, but everything getting pushed back to May next year, which honestly, I think it's kind of perfect, honestly. But we'll see how it goes, obviously. We'll see how it goes in the next Shrek movie, obviously. And I'm definitely very excited. And I hope you all enjoyed this ranking, enjoyed this video discussion on these Shrek franchise. Let me know down in the comment section what are your thoughts on those movies. How would you rate all these Shrek movies? What are your thoughts on it? And let me know if you want me to do the same in other movies or anime movies down in the comment section. I'd love to know. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am Cinnamon World from Cinnamon Productions. I will see you next time as always. Stay cool, Betty, and sprinkling you some positivity. Peace.